Thank you for inviting me.
No, my pleasure. It's nice to have you back. So I guess to start off with, just to introduce the topic, we want to talk about, in particular, why America, as we can say as a government, and also as a people in general, tend to side with Israel. And for the purpose of this this live video, when we speak English, I prefer just for the sake of clarity that we use the name Israel, because sometimes we don't like to use it, but I guess for the sake of clarity, it's always good to be clear. So we both have experiences living in America, and mashallah, you have a book about this exact topic, actually, Doctor. So maybe just to start off with, maybe we could talk about your particular experience with regard to this topic. When you were in America, what did you notice with regard to people's perception about the Israel and Palestine issue?
Well, again, thank you for having me tonight. And, I'm honored, to be one of those voices in the Middle East to talk about this subject, because this subject, affects a lot of people's lives, especially in Palestine, Israel. Also affects a lot of people in the Middle East, and affects the way the United States foreign policy conducts itself in the Middle East. That's why it's very important for us as Arabs, as Middle Easterners, and people who live in the Middle East to know one or two things about this subject. I lived in the States of America about 22, 23 years. And I noticed that, of course, I went to college there. I was doing my master's degree there. I was doing my PhD. I became a PhD candidate and everything. I noticed that there is a gap between the opinion of the people and the government official opinion. And there is also a gap between the declared official statements of the government officials as well as their private opinions behind closed doors or off the microphone. So to start with, the American people in general are very gullible people. That's why they tend to follow what the media outlets usually tell them. So in one way or another, the state of Israel, Palestine, occupied Palestine, is a faraway region. The Americans in general don't care much about, don't know much about, don't know the names of the countries, don't know the geography of the Middle East. They're not really interested in knowing anything about it because they worry about everyday life and how to make a living. So the American people in general don't really care much about these issues. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so to make the short story shorter, the American people are gullible people. They follow what the media tells them, and unfortunately the media tells them that the Palestinians are in the wrong and Israel has the right to defend itself always and every time in every conflict. That's the whole issue about the people in the States of America. As far as the government is concerned, the government official statement usually almost happen to be always with the side of Israel. Be it Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Obama before him, Bush W, Bush the father to some extent, you name it, Bill Clinton, all the way down, back all the way to Harry Truman times, they have one statement which happened to be a broken record today, which is Israel has the right to defend itself. Israel has the right to exist. Therefore, whatever Israel does, right or wrong, we will back it up. Whatever they do, how many ever they kill, we don't care, we're still gonna back it up. That's the official statement that you hear from the voices from the President of the United States of America to the people in the Senate and Congress. That's the official line they always use.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because for me, when I went to America, I was only there for 2 years, 2.5 years. One thing I noticed was that in the UK, for instance, or even in Europe, speaking more generally, you find a lot of people are aware of what's going on, and you find that they are in favor of Palestine. When I went to America, I was shocked actually to find that almost everybody I spoke to regardless of if they're left or right-leaning, when it comes to this topic of Palestine and Israel, 100% with Israel. So, and I think it's like you said, Doctor. Most people aren't quite in the know about what's going on. They hear something on the news, they hear what the government tells them, and that's that. There's also the topic of the Christians or the evangelical Christians in America and their support for Israel, which I think is quite interesting. I don't know if you have much or anything to add on that.
Yes, of course. You know, about 100 years ago, a translation of the Bible came, and it became very popular in the States of America. And the name of that Bible version called the Scofield Bible. And that guy in the footnote started interpreting all the biblical verses, Old and New Testament, in favor of Israel. That this state of Israel must exist, that we have to protect this state of Israel. This is God's will on earth. God will look at you and act with you accordingly, the way you deal with Israel and how much support you have for it. So, you know, he filled up the good book with a lot of commentaries that will play with the people's emotions in the United States of America. And he had become the first Christian Zionist in the States of America that advocates not only for the right for Israel to exist, but also to make every possible mean to ensure that the other party don't exist. Meaning expulsion, coercion, forcing to leave, displacing, filling the state of Israel with all kinds of weapons and ammunition to make sure that this country not only exists, but also the other side, which happen to be the Palestinian people, to leave the land of Palestine once and forever. Why? Because they don't have the right to exist. They are unworthy people. They are the heathens. They are these people, you know, who don't have culture. They are not biblical. They are the Canaanites, the ones the Bible spoke of a long time ago. As a matter of fact, according to Scofield and the Zionist Christians, according to them, David should have done a better job eliminating them 1,000 years ago, so we wouldn't have this problem today with the Palestinians, unfortunately.
It's very interesting because a lot of the pro-Israeli arguments are centered around religious rhetoric in the sense that you hear people say things like, yeah, but the Palestinians are religious fanatics and so on and so forth. But we see in many cases for the Jewish support for the state of Israel is in many cases founded on a religious belief that they have a right to the land. And as I was saying, even the same with the evangelical Christians. I don't know if you've read, Doctor, about the idea of the Armageddon, where a lot of the evangelical Christians believe that once the state of Israel becomes fully Jewish, the Armageddon will happen in Israel. And that's something that they want to happen. So it's within their religious interests for the state of Israel to become 100% Jewish. So this is a pure, we can say, religious incentive or motivation for their backing of Israel, which is very, very interesting.
Well, you know, to think about it, you know, just count the numbers. The numbers don't lie. The States of America has about 2% of its population happen to be American Jews. 80% of those American Jews are liberal, meaning they always vote for Democrats. 80%. 20% of them, they're hardcore Republicans. They always vote for hardcore American foreign policy. Both of them, don't get me wrong, both of them want Israel to exist. Both of them want Israel to exist in its current form and more. But the liberals and the Democrats, they want some room for the Palestinians, like, you know, like in the attic somewhere, while the Republicans want 0 Palestinians on the land of Palestine. I say that to say this. In numbers, the Jews have no way or how or shape to control the foreign policy of the States of America, even if they spend millions and millions and billions of dollars on American elections to ensure that somebody pro-Israel become a president or in the Senate to make sure the policies remain the same and favorable of Israel. In numbers, that's not enough. Again, 6 million people, only 22% are hardcore Republicans. It's not enough. So they found a way in the 1980s, and I wrote all this in my book, Humat Israel, or Israel Protectors, which just came out, in Arabic, of course. In the 1980s, a new wave of Jewish American organizations decided to involve Christians in that same notion. And they found a few Christian reverends, a few Christian priests, few Christian fathers to advocate for the existence of Israel on biblical terms. Southern Baptists, even Jehovah's Witnesses, and as of late also, the Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons. Since the 80s, they started advocating for the existence of Israel on the expense of the Palestinians, on Palestinian lands. And when they did that, all of a sudden, now the Jewish organizations in the States of America that happen to be pro-Israel, instead of being a million individuals, all of a sudden they became 60 million individuals in the States of America. They found the newly founded Christian Zionists since the 80s, and they became hardcore. These are the very same ones who happened to have Donald Trump get elected in 2016 as a president. The very same people, listen, the very same people who had Donald Trump elected to become president of the States of America in 2016 happened to be those Zionist Christians on one notion and one notion only, that you go there and you protect Israel. You go there and ensure that Israel gets more money, more ammunition, more diplomatic clout in the United Nations. So imagine 81% of Christians voted for Donald Trump 2016, even though he was a womanizer, even though he had a few dozens of sexual cases against him, even though he said it even publicly live, that he likes to grab by the... Mind you, he said all that. They did not care about none of that. When he said, I'm pro-Israel, I will protect that land. Obama is soft. I will become the protector. I will become the Harry Truman of our era. 81% of those guys voted for him and made him president 2016 because he went after their emotions and the state of Israel. Mind you, he was a womanizer. He had a bunch of sexual cases against him. He publicly said that he likes to play around. He likes to grab the females by their private parts. So you can see, in the States of America, it's the case is very crucial right now. The Christians mainly right now are pro-Israel on the expenses of Palestinians, because there are Christians who happen to be pro-Israel and pro-Palestinians at the same time, meaning Israel is a reality, let them stay, and whatever left of that original historic land, 13%, wherever, the Palestinian can have it. So they are pro in that sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because Donald Trump isn't really what you'd call a true conservative. As we've seen his political history, he changes parties every 5 minutes, and he's not. Even the conservatives who voted for him admitted openly that he's not a true conservative, but he fit within their he served their needs, I suppose we can say. And it's very interesting because the Israel lobby in America is predominantly, I think, maybe 80% comprised of Christians, not Jews, which is something that I think a lot of people aren't fully aware of, for the reasons we just mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah, and talking, I suppose we've talked a lot about the people and their take on the situation and the way they're influenced by their government. Obviously, focusing on the American government, their support for Israel very, very, very clearly serves their political interests, and I think it couldn't be any more clear.
Yes.
For
Well,
them, yeah.
yes. The political system in the United States of America allow for outside players to influence the elections. Outside players meaning not only outside of your city limit, not only outside of your state limit, but also outside of your country. Today in the States of America, since 2010, they came with a new notion that they call it Super PAC. Super PAC meaning anybody, whether in the States of America or through United States of America organizations, could contribute unlimited fund to whoever they want him to be elected to office. Before, it used to be maximum 2,000 you could spend for, the system in America. People don't run on their own money. People, give them money to run a campaign.
Yeah.
So before, only 2,000 an individual or an organization is allowed to spend on any campaign. 1,000 for the primaries and another 1,000 for the one for the primary and one for the one before the primary, within the party itself.
Yeah.
Now, since 2010, it became unlimited. So here's you have one dude could contribute $20 million for one person in one wow. Since 2010. That's why all of a sudden in the United States of America, the elections skyrocketed. Obama and Hillary Clinton in 2008 each spent $1 billion. I'm sorry, both of them spent $1 billion on election. In 2012, each candidate spent almost $1 billion plus dollars on election, each. In 2016 and 2020, the number became $3 billion on elections, both parties. These are the declared numbers. I say that to say this. The golden rule in America is who has the money rules. Sheldon Adelson, others, of mega rich Jewish individuals in the States of America, they pay very handsomely to these people to become their puppets, to do whatever policies they advise of. Sheldon Adelson is one of them on the Republican side. Another dude on the Democrat side, or Sabin, who happens to be from Egyptian origins, from the Democratic side. So they do all this, which is perfectly legal in the States of America. They buy politicians through elections and campaigns. Perfectly legal. The only problem with it is us, the other side of the game, DMP. We are DMP from all that. DMP means did not play. We did not show. We are no show to the game. There are 6 million Jewish Americans. We are 6 million Arab and Muslims in the States. So the numbers are similar. They have money. We have money too. They have source of income. We have source of income too. We are not there to play. They are home alone doing all the stuff. They're buying politicians. They're finding other people to influence and having, be elected, president or senate or whatever. We are not there. Most of us want to be left alone. Most of us busy trying to make money. Most of us are too busy with our gas stations, are too busy with our corner stores. Palestinians and otherwise, Palestinians, Yemenis, Arabs from other, descent, whatever. We are not there to compete with them in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is open for everybody. The golden rule says whoever got the money runs the country. Whoever has the money rules the town. You could buy, with money, you could buy politicians legally. You don't have to bribe anybody. That's the American system. The American system is made that way. Anybody could contribute to whoever. So imagine you're running for election and I give you handsomely $50 million. Don't you owe me? You owe me something. Even the politicians say so. Betsy DeVos, who happened to be the education secretary during Donald Trump era. She was the education. Betsy DeVos, who happened to be the sister of Eric Prince, once upon a time, she was a major contributor. A major fund contributor to elections. Spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on election campaigns. And she said it before she became Secretary of Education under Donald Trump. She said, I donate money and I expect return on my investment. Meaning, it's not no strings attached when I donate. I'm not donating money because your eyes are gorgeous or you have such a nice, wonderful voice, I want to hear it on TV. No. I donate money. This is investment and I would like to get a return on my investment. And long and behold, she became the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Education under Donald Trump because she paid enough money to get that job. Us as Arabs and Muslims, we don't have to buy jobs, but we could buy politicians legally. We could spend handsomely on their elections, on their campaigns, perfectly legal, and expect return on our investment. Hey man, listen. Okay, you cannot say but guess what? This much we need you to say. This much we need you to support. We need you to be a supportive of Palestine. We need you to raise your hand during vote time in the Senate or election. In the Senate or Congress and say no. What's right is right. Palestinians have the right to live too. Palestinians have the right of a dignified life. Palestinians have the right, historically so, that piece of that land. Palestinians do exist and will exist. But we're not there. We DNP. We don't play. We did not play. We are not existing. That's why the mega rich Jewish people in the States of America, as well as their major organizations, lobbies, are having it easy in Washington, D.C. because they're the only players in town. They are the only sheriff in town. They do as they wish. Politicians listen to them and apply. They asked Harry Truman in 1945, Harry Truman, the President of the United States in 1945, and I said this, I wrote this in my book, Humat Israel, Israel Protectors. They asked him, they say, how dare you declare the state of Israel? It took Harry Truman 11 minutes to recognize the newly founded state of Israel. In 1948, when Israel declared its independence, it took Harry Truman only 11, 12 minutes to make up his mind and say, yeah, we back that up. Yeah, we with that. Yeah, we recognize the new country. So the reporters were shocked. They asked him outside in the news conference, they told him, Mr. President, what about the Palestinians? What about the Arabs that live on that land for thousands of years? And guess what his answer was?
What did he say?
I'm sorry, but there are no Arabs, no Palestinians in my constituency. Where are they? I don't see them in Washington, D.C. They did not talk to me. They didn't spend no money on my election. They didn't, fund my campaign. They are non-existent. Okay, 1945, we're not existence. 1948, we're not existence. 67, we are not existence. 73, not existence. We don't exist in Washington, D.C. until this day. We are non-existence. So no wonder the politicians hear one side of the story, one person paying them to do what they do, and that's why they 100% with the state of Israel. We do not have the political clout, even though we have what it takes. We have all the factors to win. We do not have the political clout because we are not willing to go to Washington, D.C. and raise hell and raise political clout for our people there, even though we have what it takes. We have mega billionaire Arabs in the States of America. We have a lot of Palestinians in the States of America that owns a bunch of gas stations. I tell you, one time we were in a fundraising in 2003 in Tallahassee. I was invited for a fundraiser for a guy to become the commissioner over Tallahassee. Tallahassee is the capital of Florida. The capital of Florida. So this guy, who happened to be half Egyptian, half Saudi, he was in the politics of Tallahassee. So
Egyptian and half?
Saudi.
Okay.
So he was in the politics of the city. He invited us. He invited about 30 dignified Arabs in Tallahassee who happened to own gas stations, happened to own shops. He said, come over here. There is this guy here. There is this guy here. He is running for commissioner of the city. He is pro-Palestinian, but he needs the support. Okay, when we're going to meet? He said, we're going to meet in a restaurant in an open place. We're going to meet, and perfectly legal. We're going to listen to what he has to say, and we will support him. Once he finishes, each one of us is going to get a book check out and write, whatever money, however much money you want to fund the man. Perfectly legal. Invited 30, 50 dignified Arabs from Tallahassee. Nobody showed up but 8. Invited Palestinians who own gas stations, clubs, liquor stores, corner stores. Invited Yemenis, invited other Arabs from different descents, Lebanese, invited me, a couple other Saudis. The only guys that showed up to that meeting, myself, 2 more Saudi guys from Saudi Arabia, 1 guy from Pakistan,
Right.
and an Egyptian who happens to be an in-law with the dude. It was 8 of us, but we were embarrassed. So the guy looks, he like, I'm here to support you guys, but I need your money. I cannot run election with no money. This is America. We have bills to pay as a campaign. We are not there on the local level. We are not there on the city level. The Arabs are not there with the state level. We are not there in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. That's why the decisions made, everything is cooked in Washington, D.C., is cooked without us being there, all regards to our wishes and what really we like to see.
No, that's very interesting. But do you think, Doctor, that the issue is that it's simply within America's interests for Israel to exist? As we saw in the past, the days of the Cold War, it was very much within America's interests for there to be for the state of Israel to exist in that particular region. We're talking about the days of in which many of the neighboring Arab countries were more aligned with the Soviet Union, with socialist policies and so on and so forth. And of course, even after the fall of communism in the late 80s and early 90s, it has remained within America's interest to have Israel in that strategic location.
Okay, well, I don't agree. And I don't agree for good reasons, but let me tell you what the generals and the military personnel and the politicians who happen to be Americans themselves, they don't agree with that either. They say, as a matter of fact, not only Israel is not in our interest to be there and doing what they're doing, Israel is a burden on us. First of all, they're sucking the United States of America money high. the States of America, an average American is selling his blood. Imagine an American is selling his blood, sell his plasma to get $300 so he could pay the light bill. While the state of Israel gets $5 billion a year free of charge, no strings attached. These are the declared numbers. The hidden numbers probably triple that number. Israel has access to almost all the military secrets and military technology of the Pentagon. That's not an interest of the states for a foreign country to know all your secrets. And watch this. Numerous times the state of Israel took this top secret military information and shared it with the enemies of the States of America, such as China and Russia. The last time was in 1998 and 2000. In the 1980s, the State of Israel, through its spies, spied on the Pentagon, was able to retrieve 750,000 highly classified information about the United States of America and the NATO whereabouts in Europe, and took it and gave it to Russia, the Soviet Union. This is not of American interest, is it? Hell no. So despite what's being advocated that Israel is an interest of the state, is not. It is a burden. Imagine during the highest era of the Cold War between the United States of America and the Soviet Union, I come and I take, which is the state of Israel, come and take all the military information of your whereabouts, where your hardware is, where your tanks are, where your airplanes, where you hide in everything, where your runaways, everything. I take all that and I give it to your number one enemy. You wonder why the Israelis did that. They did that because they wanted about 1 million Russian Jews to migrate to Israel, and the Russians were hesitant to do so. So they say, what if we gave you the NATO's movements and whereabouts? Would you give us the 1 million? And they say, yeah, we'll give you the 1 million. And that's what happened. 1986, 1987. The guy got caught. His name is Jonathan Pollard, got caught and sentenced to life without parole in the United States of America since the 1980s. Confessed to the crime and everything. The state of Israel loved that dude so much that they named a street after him in Jerusalem. There is a street named after Bari in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. That same spy that took all this information and gave it to the enemy of the States of America. That's no interest. Americans have no interest of this. The military hardware. Americans give top military hardware to Israel almost free of charge. The Israelis don't pay a goddamn thing to it. The latest weapon that America has, the F-35. The F-35 has 3 divisions. They have A, B, and C. A, which is the new version of the stealth. You remember the stealth?
Yeah.
F-35 is the newest version of the stealth. Each plane's cost price is $100 million.
How many billion?
$100 million a plane.
Okay.
Israel was the first one to get them free of charge through a fund in the United States of America military called Foreign Military Fund. They had dozens of it, and they have become operational before even the military of the United States of America itself uses them. That's of no interest to the Americans. Of no interest to the Americans when you share America's top secrets with China. 2000, not 1940s, 2003. So unlike what people say, a true ally of the States of America in the Middle East happen to be the Arabs, like it or don't. A good interest of the Americans, especially geographically speaking, it's warships that happen to be all over the sea. Not Israel, the burden. What interest does America have? None whatsoever of having Israel the way it is today. Israelis, Jews in the States of America try to advocate that, to make believe. So the Americans think, yeah, we protect them, we help them, we give them because it's our interest. No, it's not. And your politicians know so. Your politicians say so. They say, your generals in the military, they say so too. They say, man, that's really a problem to us. It's a burden to us, everything. So my opinion don't count. The opinion of the people don't count. What count is really behind closed doors, what these politicians really are complaining of, the American politicians and their generals. They say, no, hell no, it's a burden, it's costing us a lot of money, it's costing us a lot of headache, it's making us go through a lot of wars for nothing.
That's interesting, because on officially, the rhetoric that we hear is that it's within America's interest because Israel's a democracy. It's within America's interest because this, that, and the other. So, yeah, I think we all know one thing is said and something else is a reality. Very interesting. Let's have a look at some of the questions. Maybe there are some questions we can ask. Someone says Yari Yari with Yaser Albahri. Okay, many of the questions seem to be things that we've covered. So I don't know, Doctor, do you have anything else in particular that you want to touch upon with regard to this topic?
Okay, we as Arabs, as Muslims, as Palestinians, whether living inside the States of America or living outside the States of America, all we have to do to win Palestine, to win dignity for the Palestinian people, a dignified life for themselves and their children. We have to win the battle that's going on in Washington, D.C. You win in Washington, D.C., political clout. You buy enough lobbies, perfectly legal. You buy enough PR companies, perfectly legal. You buy a bunch of counselors, perfectly legal. You voice your opinion. You buy media outlets, perfectly legal. Once we win the battle in Washington, D.C., the battle on Palestine is easily won. Could be as quick as overnight. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. I have one last question, which is I'm curious about this. When you were in the States, did you ever have any, whenever you would voice your opinion on this particular conflict about Palestine, I imagine there were you were probably met with some interesting reactions from people. Did you have any? Did it ever get you into trouble in any way?
Not trouble. Most of the comments was, the number one comment was, wow, damn, man, I didn't know that. Damn, man, I didn't know that. I thought it was that. Why? Because it's a new information to them. We are not there to tell them our side of the story. We are not there to tell them what's really going on. We are too busy with our gas stations. We are too busy with our cafes. We are too busy with the convenience stores and our corner stores. I make a joke all the time. About our brothers in the States of America. I say, باع القضية والشر الكازية. A lot of us, we sold out the Palestinian cause. We sold out this. We over there busy doing other things. We're going to the clubs, we're hanging out, we're buying beach houses, we're buying big cars, we're putting rims. The rims are spinning all day, big music, we're hanging out, we have money, but we are too scared to go to Washington, D.C. and play with the same game, play with this by the same rules these people are playing. And that's our take on ourselves. I'm not excluded. I'm just one of them too. So we need to get our act together in the States of America and get busy in Washington, D.C. We show up, okay, there is a game going on, okay, how can we play the same game? Okay, this way, okay, let's do it. That's all we have to do. We have to have the political will to go to Washington, D.C. and start making things there different.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated. A pleasure as always.
Have a good night.
And inshallah, we'll have you on again soon.
Have a good night.
Take care. Have a good evening.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye bye.